Hello, everyone, and welcome to our small discussion series around EV battery manufacturing. This time we will be discussing the standardization of, pretty much starting with automation platforms, but generally speaking, standardization of systems related to battery assembly. Standardization for me means creating a defined set of technologies, defined set of equipment that will be used. So could you start by saying why such standardization matters in the manufacturing?
Thank you, Piotr. You are right. That's the starting point, having such, different standardized elements that compose the system. But before going into details, I would like to emphasize that this kind of standardization is quite widely adopted by automotive EV industry, where we see that among the different shops like body shop, welding shop, powertrain, etc., we already have, some common technologies that are in use and that help, having efficiency in production and so on. The new concept here we see is that we need to meet the complex demand of those connected plants. So the new elements we would integrate will be data as an additional, element for this standardization. So it's important to have this holistic standardization approach. So not only looking on the machine level, but really taking into account the whole process. So talking about the application, the machine, production line, and so on. Because here we believe that with those kind of standardized approach, will help to increase the efficiency of the machines, but also reduce the cost. We will not need to redevelop something else. And finally, achieve stable and better quality of your EV battery.
So it's not only about the equipment standardization, but also definition of specific structure of data as well. That's your point, yes?
This is correct. So here it's also important to have a framework or a definition what is the standard for you, which may be different from one industry to another, because we know that in this industry you may require those set of criteria of data, and in the other it will be completely different. So it's important to have the harmonized way how you structure your data, and this should be exactly the same among the whole process.
So we are an automation supplier, and obviously from our perspective we can say why standardization makes sense. So once we establish a specific set of equipment, it's easier to work on the spare parts, it's easier to do the engineering and so on. And that's clear. But I assume it's not only our life that should be easier, right? So could you explain how else, who else is gaining some benefits from it?
Yeah, because you are totally right. When we talk about standardization, of course, it will start with the end user. That's the first point. But to make or to have a standardization well implemented, we should involve and have a strong cooperation between all the parties working on a specific project. All the parties, I mean, of course, the end user that will define its requirements, but then also the system integrators that will integrate the different machines, the machine builders, and finally, Mitsubishi Electric, as you said, as an automation supplier. So here we need to have, I like to talk about ecosystem collaboration, because this will gain this, competitive advantage if we are able to share all this information among each other, through a centralized collaboration tool. Because we see if we make a comparison with the companies that are already using systems like Slack, like Teams, that this cooperation is already in use and bring a lot of benefits. So the same should apply also in the manufacturing, that you have, like an ecosystem collaboration between the different companies. Because here we see that when we increase the, transparency, it will lead to better benefits, not only to the end user, because as I said, for integrators, for OEMs, for all the companies involved in this kind of project.
Understood. So this is kind of like establishing a common framework, but let's discuss the practical approach to the system design. So let's assume that we establish this kind of ecosystem collaboration. How does the new system design changes when you have it?
Yeah. So first of all, I would say that when we design a system, it should start in the digital space. So we are talking about the digital twin, virtual commissioning, and so on. That should be the really starting point. And this is why, again, coming back to this ecosystem, if you have this common platform, then it will be much easier to get on board all those, different parties that will be working on the project. As a next step or additional step, when you define the common standard among those companies that are working on, you will not need to redevelop once again, because as I said, as long as it is developed once, then it is shared among all those companies, and they simply can reuse this development in their machine, in the application, and in the production line. So it also gives the same look and feel to the end user. They don't face with different development, different screens, depending on the machine builder or the company who provide the machine or the application. When we move to the next step as installation after development was finished, since you have the same technology system implemented in those machines, you know that the startup will be also reduced because it will be almost the same from one machine to another. So we see here that also we can gain a lot of time by reducing this startup, and this finally will lead to approximately 30% reduction of cost, and this is based on our experience that we have with our customers.
So it seems this kind of standardization, well, it's beneficial to all of the parties involved. I think we could sum it up with these words. But then a question arises, why we are not doing this everywhere?
Well, automotive and EV industry is quite advanced. One of the most advanced, I would say, when it comes to automation, digitalization, etc. So, as I said before, this is a widely adopted already system. Maybe all those elements of the system are not yet in use, but this is widely adopted. But I believe that improving the manufacturing, the efficiency, and so on, should go through this kind of standardization approach.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Piotr.